Over the course of my career, I've set up over 1,000 trusts. I have video testimonials on my website from several trust companies saying that for the past few years, my law firm has set up more trusts with them than any other law firm in the world. We shield assets from lawsuits, from creditors, from divorce. We do not do anything that reduces, mitigates, or evades taxes. The biggest misconception in the asset protection world is that offshore trusts are only appropriate if you are super wealthy. And I think this rumor is spread by attorneys who just don't like or don't understand, haven't taken the time to really become competent in this area of law. Most lawsuits that are filed against individuals with under $2 million in assets.
Welcome to another episode of the Jack Bosch Show, where we talk about all things real estate, entrepreneurship, finance, and today we're actually going to talk about asset protection and offshore trusts. I have one of the nationwide experts on the subject matter here with me, Blake Harris. Blake, how are you doing today?
Jack, great to be here. Nice to be on the show.
Wonderful. I'm so excited to have you today because, hey, your subject matter is something I wanted to learn something about for the longest time, and I can't wait to dive into it. So tell us what's your specialty?
So my firm is the nation's largest exclusively offshore asset protection law firm. So we create structures so that in the event our clients go through a lawsuit or a divorce, their assets remain theirs.
Offshore asset protection. Now let's define that a little bit more. How does that typically look like?
So, let's talk about asset protection. Asset protection is merely the process of rearranging your financial affairs so that it's harder for a creditor, harder for a judgment, harder for a lawsuit, harder for anyone to take them away from you. Now, there are two types of asset protection. There's domestic asset protection, and then there's offshore asset protection. And there's a very important difference between these two types of asset protection. One of those structures can be broken by a U.S. court, the other cannot. And that's where my firm draws the line. We do exclusively the type which cannot be broken, offshore asset protection. Clients still have a lot of flexibility in terms of how the money's invested when they take distributions, but if they ever go through any type of litigation, they sleep well at night knowing that their money is going to remain protected.
That makes sense. Now, there's a lot of misinformation, rumors, and things about offshore strategies. Now, let's walk through a typical example and a typical kind of structure that you set up for somebody. And
Sure.
you would just what would be what's like a fairly typical kind of scenario that you find?
So we will first discuss the client's assets and then figure out how to protect the assets which are not already protected. Some assets are already protected, retirement accounts up to a certain level, homes up to a certain amount, depending on what state you're in, or unlimited in certain states, are protected. Beyond that, what we will do is set up a trust by registering it offshore, typically in the Cook Islands, sometimes Nevis or Belize, and then put the assets into the trust. For assets such as stocks, bonds, cash, cryptocurrency, all that can be held in an offshore account, typically in Switzerland. So you've got the trustee in the Cook Islands, you've got the offshore account in Switzerland. The most protective jurisdiction for asset protection is Cook Islands. The safest jurisdiction for banking is Switzerland. This gives our clients the best combination, and then the clients can live in the United States or really anywhere in the world and enjoy the benefits of the structure. For other assets, it's a business interest that can be put into the trust as well. Most businesses can be put into the trust as well, I should say. And then real estate can be put into the trust too. Now, for real estate, there is an issue because it still will remain in the United States, and a U.S. court could go directly after that asset. So instead, what we will have clients do, or in addition to putting in the trust, we'll also have the client employ some type of equity stripping strategy. This is where liens are placed on the real estate and the proceeds are held in an offshore account. Once you have this set up where any domestic real estate has liens on it, all the assets are held offshore, the client can simply say that I don't have the ability to hand over the assets to a third person, and the court is not going to be able to reach those assets without the plaintiff going to litigate in a foreign country where odds are very much stacked against them. And I can go into why the odds are better for a defendant in an offshore jurisdiction than the United States at some point in the show today as well.
Let me just jump into that for a second. You talk about equity stripping. So it makes sense that you say okay, certain assets, we put the assets into a trust. The trust we register in the Cook Islands or in some other place. And then for crypto things, we keep them in Switzerland because that's the safest. That, fully get it. Now you talked about for real estate, it's a specific case where the asset is in the US, so technically somebody could say, I will still take it over. You mentioned asset stripping. So can you explain that concept?
So let's say that you have a piece of real estate here in the United States worth $1 million. You can have that owned by the trust, and that does alone give you a level of protection. You can report on financial affidavit that the value of that asset to you is $0. You can also prevent the court from ordering you to hand it over because, well, you simply don't own the asset to give away. Now, it is possible the court will just simply disregard the structure. A plaintiff will go through a separate foreclosure action and take that real estate. So, for better protection, what we would have clients do is equity strip it. We'll bring in a third-party lender. They will give our clients, let's say the property is worth $1 million, they'll give the client $950,000, record a lien on the property. That lender has their investment secure. And then the proceeds, that $900,000 the client has received, will be held in that Swiss bank account. So if a creditor tries to go after that property, they're going to realize they have to pay off that $1 million, $950,000 loan first. This is a huge disincentive for a plaintiff. And instead of trying to go after a property and spending all the costs on foreclosure, which is going to eat up the majority of the value that is available to them, a plaintiff is much more willing to talk settlement. That's the name of the game, getting our clients to a satisfactory settlement.
Okay. So in this case, there's actually a loan involved, or is it more like a paper, a note, but then the note was sold for $50 to yourself and you just keep it in your own drawer?
I do not do BS or fake liens. I believe that to even be considered wire fraud. No, we bring in a legitimate third-party lender who actually moves money into another account. Having fake mortgages is a strategy that I recommend running from.
No, wait, I just heard about the fake mortgages and I heard about the other one, so just wanted to get some clarity on there.
Yeah. There's a lot of people promoting that type of planning on the internet. I don't know that it is frequently prosecuted, but it's not a strategy that I think a reputable attorney would ever recommend.
Okay, very good. So with that asset stripping, then I assume obviously you get the $950,000 at whatever interest rates, and the premise is that when you invest in Switzerland, you get a similar interest rate, so it's basically cost neutral to you.
Correct, exactly. Once the money's held offshore, you can have it pay a quarterly coupon to you, which will offset the cost of the loan. There may be some additional fees on top of that, but you can knock out the interest rate with the reinvestment.
Yeah, okay. That's at the end of the day, even if it's not 100% cost neutral, that's the cost of having an insurance and a good night's sleep, knowing that your asset looks like it has only 5% equity in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. Good. So now moving on from there. So now there's equity stripping in place. There's these kind of things in place. And you said the goal is to ultimately get to a settlement of whatever situation, whatever legal challenge that was thrown to people. Now,
exactly.
One thing to clarify is we are not talking about offshore income shielding situations. We're talking only about offshore asset protection. There's a very big difference between the two of them.
Absolutely. So we shield assets from lawsuits, from creditors, from divorce. We do not do anything that reduces, mitigates, or evades taxes. As a matter of fact, this entire structure is reported to the IRS. Now, we provide our clients a detailed memorandum on how to complete those reporting requirements and can recommend a CPA to help fill those out. But the trust itself is a tax neutral vehicle.
Good, because there's a lot of talk about the offshoring your income and avoiding income tax and things like that. And a lot of that is being heavily gone after by the IRS because a lot of it is kind of semi-legal. I understand, but this is not where you're operating. You're simply operating in the asset protection, and so that in case of a lawsuit, the creditors don't have much to get to, or they're almost forced into a settlement situation because they can't get the asset.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good, very good. In the introduction, or before we actually started, when we looked to the records and things like that, you recommend this for people with net worth of $2 to $20 million. Why start at 2 and why end at 20?
So the majority of people who set up an asset protection trust have somewhere between 1 to 2 and 10 to 20 million. So we'll call it 2 to 20 million. We do have a few clients who have as little as a few $100,000 in net worth, and we do have some clients who have ultra high net worth individuals, tens of millions, or a couple that even have hundreds of millions of dollars. But the biggest misconception in the asset protection world is that offshore trusts are only appropriate if you are super wealthy. And I think this rumor is spread by attorneys who just don't like or don't understand, haven't taken the time to really become competent in this area of law. Most lawsuits that are filed against individuals with under $2 million in assets. And if you take a quick example, you've got one individual whose net worth is 2 million, another individual whose net worth is 200 million, and both are hit with a $5 million judgment. The individual worth $200 million, it's not really going to affect their standard of life, their quality of living whatsoever. But for the individual who's only worth 2 million, a $5 million judgment could be absolutely devastating. So what we end up seeing is the majority of people who set these up have a net worth of about $1 to $2 million on the low end and about $10 to $20 million on the high end.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the next question I have for you is then, so it's more like we have done okay in real estate. We have built our asset thing, and over time, as we started here as an immigrant coming from Germany, and my wife as an immigrant coming from Honduras, started with nothing, built up our net worth. We started working with some trust. So we started setting up certain trust, and then we were pitched a bunch of years ago by somebody for some what's called dynasty family trusts. And it all sounded good and things, and it takes advantage of the lifetime exemption that, like for that, I think now with Trump's new beautiful bill, big beautiful bill changed anyway. But it was, we ended up not doing it. But what stuck with me was, and the reason we didn't do it, and that's where my question goes, is that once you put your assets into that kind of a trust, and my question is your trust similar to that? Basically, you don't own the asset at all, and therefore, what we made to be under what our bankers told us is, if you put the assets into one of these trusts, we won't give you any loans anymore because, for example, if you want to buy a multifamily, we do some multifamily deals. Let's say you buy a $10 million multifamily property. If you want to get a loan on that, a Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae loan, your net worth needs to be equal or greater than the assets that you want to purchase. If you want to go to a local bank, they also want to make sure, particularly if it's a recourse loan, that you have some assets to go after. So if you put a lot of your assets into these kind of trusts, they're protected from liability, but do they still count in your particular case? Do they still count towards your net worth? Because in that case that they pitched us, they wouldn't, because they're completely separate from us now. And that's the reason we didn't do it, because we're like, well, I want to still buy some multifamilies. And if I put everything over there, I got nothing in my name anymore. And now I'm on paper poor again, and nobody's going to give me a loan for a big multifamily property. So that's why we ended up not doing this. How is that situation in your scenario?
So for purposes of getting a loan, you may need to pull the assets out of the trust, get the loan, and then put them back into the trust. It's a simple transaction, but
so these are revocable trusts that you can actually.
So these are very flexible trusts. They are technically irrevocable because we don't want the court to order the client to break the trust. That negates the whole purpose. But they're very flexible. Irrevocable does not mean inflexible. They're extremely flexible. You can add and move property as you wish. You can direct how the money is invested, and you can even take all the assets out and essentially dissolve the trust as well. So the banks do want to see assets that they can go after. So pulling them out of the trust may be necessary in order to get financing.
Okay. I see. And yeah, and so are you still the trustee of the trust eventually there, or do you have to name somebody for that?
So you would need to utilize a third-party trustee, which would be one of the licensed trust companies out of the Cook Islands.
Sounds good. And probably that's a business model over there, because so many people do it, that there's professional trustees over there probably.
Correct. Now, you remain the beneficiary, and to understand trust, you need to understand the ownership structure. A trust splits the ownership between two people. There's the controlling owner, which would be the trustee, the beneficial owner, which is the client. So there's two owners of the asset with a trust. So you will always remain the beneficial owner. Yes, there's several very good trust companies in the Cook Islands, and we work with many of them.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to, you mentioned crypto a little bit. So crypto obviously starting to gain a lot of traction these days since Trump came in and started setting up the National Reserve and legalizing it and pushing it and not pushing it. Well, he has his own coin, I guess, but like overall, like making it more like being in favor of it versus the administration before fought it tooth and nail. So with that, it seems to be more and more people are getting into the crypto game. And what are some of the strategies you would recommend to secure your digital assets from legal threats, other than just moving them to Switzerland? But so how does that look in a little, perhaps a little bit more detail?
So there's a misconception that crypto cannot be taken from in a lawsuit. This is nonsense. If you get sued, the court's going to order you to disclose what your assets are, including your crypto, and claiming that you lost your crypto in a boating accident can be very dangerous, because if a court later finds out that that boating accident is not what happened with your crypto, you could face jail time. So there's no need to lie about your crypto. We can put it into a Cook Islands trust, and there's a few different options for how it can be protected. If there's no pending issue, the trust can turn around and hire the client as a custodian, and you just keep your crypto in your same place you've kept it before you create the trust. Alternatively, you can use a third-party vault and have the trustee open a third-party vault for you, or you can use one of the banks in Switzerland to hold the crypto as well. So there's a few different strategies for crypto, and it just depends on what your risk exposure, risk tolerance are.
Yeah. So, and probably advisable is to use Switzerland if you're a little bit more of a buy and hold user, because, or is this set up these days such that you actually have fairly quick access to it?
You have fairly quick access to it. The trust can, you can at any time direct how the assets are invested. So if you want to change what type of crypto you're holding, you can do that without any issue.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Yes. Yeah. I'm using a third-party vault in the United States right now, but not overseas. But I've heard good things about Switzerland as being a place to hold it. Is that because Switzerland is just known? I mean, I'm from Germany. My hometown is 10 miles from Switzerland, so I'm very familiar with Switzerland. I've been there a million times. Been there twice this year already. Is that because Switzerland is just known for its the Gringotts of this world, if I speak Harry Potter language here, or is it just simply because they're good at security and things like that, or why is that?
It's an incredibly safe system for holding wealth. It's very easy for another country to come in and just copy the laws of a different country. Anyone could go, and Somalia could go and copy the laws of Switzerland, but they don't have the entire infrastructure and history built up to support those laws. So it has just been a very safe, neutral country for a long time. It has proven to be really the best place internationally for Americans to hold wealth. And there are several banks there that are glad and happy, they're happy to work with American clients. Lots of banks around the world, inside Switzerland as well, don't want to work with Americans, because when you work with an American, you have to report to the IRS. Well, there are many banks in Switzerland that don't work with Americans, but many say, you know what, those Americans, they get a lot of money. And you know what us bankers love? Money. And so they've actually changed their business model to very much cater to the American market.
All right, very good. Now, how did you get into all of this?
How did I get into this very unique field? And I would tell you, it was not easy. I've been asked before, how did I break into an industry? Did I have any family members in the industry? The answer is no. It was something that I was inspired by early in law school. I had a professor mention and say that you shouldn't create offshore trust. But I talked to him and said, well, why not? He said, well, not unless certain criteria is met. So I said, all right, here's the deal. You keep teaching everybody, don't create an offshore trust, and I'm going to be the one to get into it. And there's a lot of bad information about offshore trusts. They're generally hated by the legal community, because if everyone had an offshore trust, plaintiff attorneys would have no one to sue. And you'd see plaintiff attorneys going out of business. And then defense attorneys wouldn't need to defend anybody. And then defense attorneys would go out of business. And then law schools would go out of business because there wouldn't be any jobs for attorneys. And then the world would live in peace and harmony. But that's not going to happen real soon. I think that I'll still be one of the few attorneys out there for quite a while who has developed the expertise and knowledge to get into this industry. So graduated law school, went out to Colorado, started my law firm there shortly after working for another law firm for some period of time. And my office was a few blocks away from another attorney named Barry Engel. Now, Barry Engel was the OG of the industry. He's the one who, along with counsel in the Cook Islands, wrote the initial Cook Islands Trust legislation, the International Trust Act in the mid-1980s. Barry was a mentor of mine for many years before he passed away, and I learned a lot about the business from him. But then I took this next step and went farther and traveled to these countries. I've been to dozens of different countries all throughout the world and met with countless numbers of attorneys, CPAs, trust protectors, trust companies, and learned so much from all of these companies along the way. On top of that, I've been very successful in my marketing. I have hundreds of thousands of followers across my various social media channels. And with that, we've gotten to service an incredible number of clients and have been able to become very much, if not definitely a leader in the industry.
Very cool. So right from law school, you saw the opportunity. That's just, I love that because so many people are like walking by opportunities left and right. And I particularly what stood out to me is that when you said the professor said, do not set them up. And you're like, why not? If everyone says no, there must be something to this and there must be a way to do this properly, which is very, very smart. Very cool. Now, how many trusts have you set up?
Over the course of my career, I've set up over 1,000 trusts. I have video testimonials on my website from several trust companies saying that for the past few years, my law firm has set up more trusts with them than any other law firm in the world. And as far as our track record is concerned, we've never once had a client lose a penny from their trust.
Now, is it like not talking about your legal fees, but like once you have the trust in place, is it expensive to keep this going?
Well, I'll talk about our legal fees. You're looking at around $30,000 to set up a trust. And then annually, all in, it's about $5,000 to $10,000 a year, which is a very small cost if you compare that cost to the cost of defending a lawsuit, which may cost you $20,000 a month for 1, 2, 3 years or more. On top of that, it's a very small fee compared to the thought of paying a judgment for a few $100,000 or a few $1,000,000.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Like I'm probably one of the few people that that I call my lawyers my insurance policy. So I'm basically I'm happy when I have. Well, I'm not happy when I pay them, but I'm happy when I pay them in a way because I know that they're saving me more money from they're saving me from down the road having to pay much more money. So it's. But how did I learn this lesson? The hard way, right? By going the cheap route a few times and then getting into situations where you ended up having to pay a lawyer a lot of money to get back out of those situations just because you didn't have the right paperwork and things like that. So I fully support, I fully agree with that. So $5,000 to $10,000, is that ongoing? Is that for the trustee over there? Or do you actually have to go out there in person? Do you have to visit the Cook Islands or anything? Or is there no requirements for any of that?
So as far as the fee that I mentioned is concerned, that annual fee covers four things. It covers the trustee's annual fee, it covers the protector annual fee, it covers the law firm's annual fee, it covers the annual fee for the CPA to complete your reporting requirements. As far as moving is concerned, you never have to leave your home at any point during the process. If you'd like to go to the Cook Islands, you're welcome to. The trustee would be happy to meet with you. It's a very beautiful place. It's far away, but that's kind of the point. People are less likely to go litigate all the way over there. But it's rare that we have clients who actually go to the Cook Islands. I go, I take my team frequently, but most people never even have to leave home at any point during the process.
Yeah, it's been to Bora Bora, but not the Cook Islands.
I've been to Bora Bora. The three places that strike me as the most beautiful in my life are Bora Bora, Atutaki, and the Cook Islands. The main island's Rarotonga, which is beautiful, but Atutaki really stands out. And then the southern island of New Zealand, all in that South Pacific area. Very hard to get to, very pristine, and it's heaven on earth. I love going to visit. I will say sometimes the internet's not the best, so I do like to get in and get out, but it's an amazing place.
Wonderful. Well, I might have to go check it out just for vacation in the first place, but then also for some of these things. Now, that very cool strategy. I like it. So how does somebody get a hold of you if somebody's interested in that? Again, it's a significant investment, but then again, if it makes sense, if you're building up assets, one of the things we teach our audience is land flipping. But then land flipping, we always tell them land flipping is only step one of your wealth generation. Like step one, it's your cash machine. We have I'm of the big belief that that everyone should have a cash machine, a cash engine, something that produces cash, and that's usually not just their job. Their job pays for your bills. What you do outside and at night and a weekend, the business you build is your cash machine. That cash machine money, though, should then be used to build assets. real estate, whatever it may be, businesses and so on. And those things need to be protected like crazy because this is your retirement. This is your wealth. This is your future. This is what you're going to live off when you're old. And and it doesn't make sense to keep that just in your own name, God forbid, or in just a simple LLC or so. It does definitely make sense to put some additional asset protection strategies in place. And why not look into a out of country, I'm sorry, into an offshore structure for that for asset protection, not income protection. Now, do you work with any kind of income protection attorneys or things that do that, or you just like not touching that?
Well, to answer your first question, how to get in touch, Blake Harris
Yes.
Law. BlakeHarrisLaw.com, all major social media platforms, Blake Harris Law. Happy to have a conversation with you. Me or another attorney at my firm can gladly walk you through the process and see if it's a right fit for you. To your second question, a big part of the reason clients choose to work with my law firm is because of our global Rolodex. We have countless numbers of attorneys, CPAs, advisors, pretty much anyone you could possibly need to protect your assets. We're one phone call away.
Very cool. So including other kind of strategies, because there's an endless amount of things you can do. It's almost like overkill at some point of time, but depending on what your assets are. But this makes sense to me because it's like you protect the assets. You potentially even can do some of these defensive deeds of trusts and things in there. I love the entire concept around it. Well, wonderful. Now. With that said, what's excites you right now these days? What do you expect in the future with AI and all these kind of things coming? Do you expect your role, your world, to change in any shape or form?
So AI is, to me, technology, and technology has always been changing the legal profession. My father was an attorney when he started out. I think they were working off fax machines and yellow book pages, and then the internet came that greatly changed the legal profession. People said that was going to replace attorneys. It didn't replace attorneys, but it's actually all the reason more that you want to have a competent person who you're working with, somebody who you trust, because there's going to be deep fakes. There's going to be players in the industry who are going to hide behind a screen and not be willing to actually show their face or even show their face out in person. I love doing these podcasts because I can do them from my home here in Miami Beach, but I also go out and do speaking engagements in person frequently. I'm glad to meet with my clients in person as well. So it's very much a relationship-based business. That's what a big part of what you're buying when you're hiring an offshore asset protection attorney. And I think that's going to be a ongoing trend that we see. In terms of other things that I'm excited about, I'm in negotiations with many people down in the Cook Islands to form a better system of onboarding trust clients. Right now, we tell clients it takes about 30 days to get a trust established. I believe, before the end of the year, with some partners I'm working with down there, can reduce that all the way down to about 1 week or even shorter in some circumstances. So just getting better, quicker, sharper, faster is something that I have been doing throughout my career. I'm going to continue to do it going forward, and we're going to see a lot more client satisfaction. And I think we're going to see a lot more of the industry tilt in my favor because of how quick we're able to deliver results for our clients.
Wonderful. Very good. No, I like that. You gotta keep changing things, particularly with technology making things easier and faster. There shouldn't be a reason why you can't reduce that, other than of course bureaucracy in the country itself,
Correct.
which is always like the biggest hurdle.
And that bureaucracy kind of plays to your favor as well, because if somebody's coming after your assets, it's not going to be a quick, easy process for them as well.
That's true. That's very that is very true. Yes. So makes sense. All right. Well, with that said, do you have anything else you want to talk to us about? Do you have any kind of subject matter you want to dive into?
Just keep in mind, offshore trusts are often misrepresented in the media. In general, Hollywood's done a great job of making all international business look like it's something shady. I don't believe there's much that you can do for your wealth that's more ethical and righteous than setting up an offshore trust. I do not agree with this belief that being weak, being vulnerable, being in a position where somebody can just take away from you, take away your family's safety net is honorable. I think the most honorable and ethical thing an individual can do is make themselves as strong and as protected as possible. And that is what I love about my job. I get to do it every single day, and nothing's more rewarding than some time after a client creates a trust, A lawsuit comes, lawsuit goes, and the client says to me, and I've heard this before, Blake, the trust operated exactly as you said it would. That gives me the utmost, makes me so grateful for what I get to do every single day. And I love the team that we've built. I don't think any other team comes close to the brain trust, the power that we have in our team. We're very responsive and we span multiple different continents, so we're available lots of different times. And it's a big part of the reason that we're able to deliver such great service and have so many happy clients.
All right, that's a perfect ending. So with that said, everyone go to blakeharrislaw.com and check it out, and go to social media, Blake Harris Law. Thank you very much, Blake, for being on the show with us.
Jack, thanks for having me. Great being here.
All right, awesome. Guys, as always, spread the word, subscribe, share it with us, tell other people about it. Because again, there's so much you can do to preserve your assets. It's not just about making money, it's about keeping money. And with that said, that's a wrap. As always, looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye-bye.